right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Women in Ag program. Today, managing the unknowns for rainfall, forage, and cattle prices, and so much more, as we all know that the ag industry is kind of volatile at times. With us today is Hannah Goodson and Kevin Hatcher. Both are with the Texas Farm Credit Agency, and they have been kind enough to agree to be the presenters for us today. But just before we get started, we'll go ahead and kind of cover a little bit of logistics and housekeeping. If you've got any questions at any time, please feel free to put those in the chat box, and I'll make sure that we get Kevin and Hannah's attention during that time and get those questions asked promptly. This meeting is also being recorded and will be posted to the Tarrant County YouTube page this next week after I get some editing done. So you'll be able to refer back to that for any reference information at a later time as well. Also, at the end of the program, in the chat box, I will be posting a link to a survey. If you would take a few minutes to fill that out for us, we would greatly appreciate that. From the AgriLife standpoint, those surveys just kind of help me with reporting back to the state with the things that we're doing here in the county as well as across the state in terms of bringing the information that you are needing and wanting to help in your operations. So your help with that, it's greatly appreciated with that. But I'll post that in the chat as we get closer to the end or at the end of the program. So with that being said, I'm going to turn the program over to Kevin and Hannah.
Alrighty, thank you. Hi, everyone. As Jacqueline said, I'm Hannah Goodson. I'm a loan officer with Texas Farm Credit. I'm actually located over in East Texas in Athens. Here at Texas Farm Credit, we actually serve over 100 counties across the state of Texas. We have offices up from the Red River down to the Rio Grande, so cover a large portion of Texas. Here we are typically made up of 3 different divisions. That's going to be our ag division, our mortgage division, and our insurance division. Our in-house financing includes properties like farm and ranch, recreational properties, ag business, cattle and equipment notes, and along with operating lines. Our mortgage team has avenues to complete construction, homes with acreage, future home sites, and even has an avenue for cash outs on land if you're needing to pull some equity from property that you own. As Jacqueline said, today we're going to speak on managing the unknowns. And as anyone who is in the ag industry knows, there are quite a few unknowns and many things that play a critical role in success of our industry are completely out of our control. So today we have Kevin Hatcher. He is an insurance agent with Texas Farm Credit. He is going to be presenting some tools and kind of giving you some ideas of what tools are out there to help you manage the risk on your operations. With that being said, Kevin, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to go ahead and just introduce myself, and then I'll share my screen with Jacqueline's help probably, and get started. Again, Kevin Hatcher. I office out of the Lufkin, Texas, Texas Farm Credit branch. Born and raised in Angelina County here. Still farm and ranch as a secondary job. Have a beautiful wife and 3 kids, and my 2 boys are helping me on the hay side and the cattle side. So I am definitely in tune and very connected to the ag industry. And love what I do with insurance. And today we're going to be talking about PRF and LRP. Now, just because I office out of Lufkin, I cover all of East Texas. So, and really we cover Texas Farm Credit as a farm credit association has some territory boundaries in farm credit. on the lending side, but on the insurance side, because not all farm credit agencies and associations, not all have the insurance division. I don't have any boundaries, so I can insure anything in the United States. So anybody that's on this call, wherever you're at, I can help you far as that goes. Okay. PRF, we're going to start with PRF, which is the pasture, rangeland, and forage. So this is anybody with acreage, okay? And there's three categories. There's a grazing category, a haying category, and then there's the annual forage. The annual forage is anything that you plant seasonal, like a wheat crop in the fall, or maybe a hay grazer or Sudan in the spring for a early summer crop. Um, Primarily in East Texas, especially this far east, we're dealing with a lot of haying and grazing. Okay. Um, the plain language summary, PRF helps provide income when official rainfall is short. Producers select acres coverage in 2-month intervals. If rainfall for the selected grid interval falls below the coverage level, indemnity may be paid. So basically, I'm getting a little bit of feedback there, but maybe it'll stop here in a minute. Um, Basically, you don't have to have any kind of production reporting required. Everything's done off of NOAA weather stations for your areas and your grids. The coverage levels that you see here on the slide choose between 70, 75, 80, 85, 90. What that is and how this PRF works is for any 2-month interval. So, like right now, we're in either June, July, or we're in July, August, according to what we chose and selected for your property to be the highest performing. We can select either 90% all the way down to 70% coverage levels. And what that means is from a 70-year historical database, if rainfall for that 2-month interval gets below that percentage that you have chosen, most of the time we do a 85 or a 90%. So if we get below that, it triggers payments. And that's one reason that this works so well is especially in East Texas where we're getting 10 or 12 inches in a lot of these intervals. You can still be fairly okay moisture wise with 7 or 8 inches, but still trigger on payments by this policy. The acres in use, any eligible pasture, rangeland, and forage. Again, the rules and regulations for grazing, it needs to be fenced, and you need to show proof or be able to show proof of owning livestock. Now, livestock is cattle, goats, or bison. Okay, and I get the question asked a lot about horses. Unfortunately, just straight horses can't be utilized for grazing because of course, anything that's USDA um, subsidized, it's all about the food chain, and we're not eating horses and we're not eating trees because I get asked that all the time as well. What about the tree guys in East Texas? Why can't we get protection, drought protection for them? So, but cattle, goats, bison, grazing category and grazing land fenced and show proof of ownership of livestock. Haying, any type of ground from an aerial map, and I'll show you some examples here in a minute. From an aerial map, you don't have to hay it, okay? So you don't have to hay it. You didn't have to hay it last year. You don't have to plan on haying it the next year, but it just has to be clean enough from an aerial map to be potentially hayed. And then again, all the rainfall data is calculated and determined by the NOAA weather station. After a producer signs up for this, there's no maintenance of it. Okay, so you don't have to check your rain gauge and report rainfall for your area or for your farm. It's all done electronically. Let's go back there. Important dates. Okay, so to sign up, if anybody's interested in signing up for next year, the website opens September 1 in the fall, and we have till December 1 to get everybody mapped and signed up. That's for the full next year policy, January 1 through December 1. The cool thing is about this insurance is you don't pay for it actually. You get billed September 1 of the following year. You don't pay for it actually until October 1. So, that's pretty cool. What insurance products, have you ever seen that you didn't have to pay for up front or at least start paying for some of it? So we sign you up for this fall. You don't start paying or you don't pay until the end of September, 1st of October the following year. The cool thing about that is if you've triggered some payments in some of those early 2-month intervals, like January, February, if you were below the coverage level and you triggered some payments, that's going to go, any early triggered indemnities is going to go toward your premium. So like this year, we were really dry here in 2026 early on. A lot of my customers have already cleared their premium balance. So that's a happy year for them because they'll be receiving checks by the time that they normally are paying. How it works, we first have to map it and grid it, okay? And I'm going to escape out of that and then pull up this. So how it works is you have grids, and these are 12 by 12 mile grids that you fall into. I'm just going to use this example here. You'll see the red lines. Those are the 12 by 12 mile grids. Okay, so you call me up or you send me an email with your parcel numbers or land ID numbers, or some people, the Onyx app. Anyway, just somehow send me your maps. Then I figure out where they're located and figure out what county and grid they're in. So like this example I'm using here, this is Polk County and grid number 13041. Now we're going to zoom into this place. I actually have this place insured on a policy right now. And what I wanted to show you guys is this place is all fenced right here. And I should have drew some boundary lines, but this place is all fenced. So we're going to use every square foot or every acre that we can to benefit you as a producer, okay? So these open areas, we're going to run this all as hay. Now, hay is higher producing because it's got more potential. Typically, it's going to cost you about $25 an acre to insure haying ground. Grazing typically is about $5 an acre. Now, that depends on which region of the state and all that, but typically haying's 25, grazing's about $5 an acre. So when I look at a map and when I'm about to run a quote for you, I'm going to be as aggressive as I can. So I'm going to put most of all your open ground in the hay category. But when I present your quote to you, and if the premium's too high, you can always tell me to back some of those acres out, or we can, back some of those acres down from haying to grazing, or we can just take acreage out to satisfy sort of where your comfort level is. But on this particular property, the full thing, so any open ground here I have as haying, except for I'll take out a little bit for their barn and their camp house here. I'll take out for their pond, but all the open ground I would consider hay, and then their timberland that's connected, that is fenced, I can consider as grazing, and then all these trimmings here I'd consider grazing. So this is like a 70-acre tract here. It's probably 60. No, actually, this tract's about 130 with the timber. So it'd be about 65 acres hay, and then the rest in grazing. So, but we get the grid, we get the category, we select the acres, how we're gonna basically categorize them, whether it's haying or grazing. And then I'm gonna go back to my slideshow here. Okay. the setting coverage. So we found the grid, we selected the acres, then we've got set coverage and choose intervals. I'll communicate that with customers, but that's going to be all on our side. Okay. We've got several different websites and we just actually introduced a new AI platform, website that we're using that's pretty cool that runs a lot of different models. Cause you got to remember, we're trying to pick, we're trying to get you your best coverage over 12 months, but we're looking at historical data and weather trends trying to figure out how to get your highest return for the lowest premium. And we'll give you a couple of options, higher premium with higher return, or if you're a little bit more comfortable with a lower premium, with a slightly lower return, we'll communicate that with you. After you get a program and after you're signed up, then the policy just starts working. Everything, the rainfall gets collected through the index, through the NOAA weather stations. And then let's use January, February as an example. If you have coverage in January, February, and you're below that coverage level of 90% is what I used for an example earlier, then you trigger a payment. Now, further you are away from that 90% coverage level, bigger that payment's going to be. And there's a long calculation there. If you wanted to ever know, I could write it out and give it to you, but it's all done, computer generated, but it's going to trigger a payment. Now, all this runs back through the RMA, through the USDA, because it's subsidized by the USDA. So most of these PRF programs are going to be paid at least about 50% subsidized by the USDA. So if you have a $5,000 premium, your actual coverage was $10,000 worth of premium, and the USDA on your behalf covered half of that. So, and they do that through the ag bill to help sustain agriculture and to help us, provide food for America. So it takes about, once the interval ends, so we're using January, February as an example. Once that interval ends, it takes about 60 days for the payment to get finalized and then sent out. Now, if it's early in the year and you still have your balance, because your premium's not paid till October 1. If you trigger any kind of indemnities, that goes straight to your premium balance. Once your premium balance is covered, then you start getting a check or an auto deposit in your account. What drives the quote is which grid you're in, and you can't do anything about that, but it's sort of where you're located, weather patterns, historical weather patterns. But what we can drive is the use, and I already explained that some with grazing versus haying and how to use the combination and get the best out of your property and all your acreage. Coverage level, according to if we're covering at 70% or 90% and where that falls. And then which 2-month intervals. Of course, we use the computer programs, like I said, for that. Sign up timeline is, again, September 1, the premiums are released. Then we have September, October, and November to get everything mapped, quotes out to customers, and then get a contract signed. And that's got to be done by December 1, or you have to wait all the way to the next year. So don't be like some of my customers this year. For 25, we really wet early, so the numbers wasn't looking good. And then all of a sudden, we started triggering a lot of good payments on this drought protection program in the fall because of the dry fall that we had. And I had a lot of people at the end of the year after the December 1 deadline that would call and go, "Hey, I need to get signed up because I think next year is going to be dry." And unfortunately, it was already too late. And of course, they'll get signed up this fall, but they've really left a lot of assistance on the table for not getting signed up. This for some reason that I need to move that. Yeah, okay. Now I can see everything. If you are set up with your farm through the FSA agency, we use the FSA for our subsidy from the USDA, and we also use their mapping. So if you already have your farm set up with them and have a farm number, then the mapping goes quicker. If you don't, we can sign you up the first year, but then you're going to have to end up going to the FSA office and getting a farm number and sign the AD 1026 to be eligible for the subsidy on the second year. Okay, let's get to the fun part. So I have used an example of a quote that one of my lenders sent me and said, "Hey, I know this person and they've got 8 different tracks. Can you run a quote?" So it's 8 different units. It's 506 acres total. Their annual premium for 2027 is estimated at $6,203. Now, how do we get to that? Okay. We get to that again by using historical data, and each one of these units here is a piece of property. Like unit 1, 70 acres, unit 2 is 88 acres. And through a lot of configuring and studying, we figured out that we need to put 10% of the coverage for that 70-acre unit in January, February, 50% in April, May. That's a very good time to trigger payments in that interval. June, July, 10%, October, November, 30. Now, as a customer, we can argue this all day long, and I am glad to show model after model. But a lot of time, this is on our side. This is what I'm going to present to you. And then if you have any questions or want to look at it any other way, you can. There's some agents out there that just finds the best 3 and divides it by 3. But we try to really optimize, and you'll notice there that each unit is a little bit different with coverage. This and really more grids you can have, the more sort of diversity and the more coverage you can get, because and it really makes for a healthy policy. But that doesn't mean that a quote doesn't look good with just one grid in one county. That's fine too. But this person here is scattered out in 4 different counties, and that really diversifies them and their risk there. Okay, so this is a 20-year history. Okay, again, remember their annual premium was about $6,200 a year. So if you times that by 20, that's where you get this $124,060 value. That's the premium they would have paid over 20 years. Here's the indemnity. The indemnity is triggered payments because of drought or drier than historical data showed. So 279,000 over the last 20 years would have been triggered. That's a net $155,027. Okay, so that's really good. And also, this next category here shows it's a 95% positive for positive years. That means out of the last 20 years, 19 out of 20, you've received back more money than what your premium cost. And I know this is a little bit blurry, but you'll see 2015. So the graph here shows the gray is your premium every year, and your green is the indemnity. So that's the triggered payment. So like, remember 2011, how tough and dry of a year that was, pretty well all over the state of Texas. There's your big one right there. So you triggered a lot of payments. And that was good because we were all buying feed. We were all buying hay, having to ship hay in from all over the country because of the dry conditions. And that's what this program's set up for, is to help you when your forage level is not what it should be. So 19 out of 20 years, you actually won at this plan. I really don't like to use win and loss. But that's a positive there. 2015, all these grids must have had a lot of moisture, because actually, it lost in 2015, but that's the only year out of the last 20 years. If this person would have had this plan, they would have lost. Now, this little grid down here Looks a little confusing, but anywhere there's green, that's the times of the year that payments were triggered. Okay, so think of that as green as dollar bills. That's when they're triggered. Now, I always like to sort of go back and look at recent years so my memory can remember what happened. And in 25, we had a lot of rain in the spring. So that's those 10, three categories there are the white that showed that there wasn't anything paid out because we had ton of rain. But in the fall is where we started triggering our payments because of the dry weather. And these two categories on the bottom here, the bottom is how much you made net for the year. So for 2025, this policy made it covered the $6,200 premium, but it netted $11,000. Now, the reason that we have this next category or this next line right above it, this is what you would have paid in September. So a lot of people, when they see 19 out of 20, they either go back and they tell their spouse or they tell their self or they tell their accountant, hey, I don't have to worry about paying for this because I never lose. I mean, I win 19 out of 20 years. Not exactly. Okay. Still be planning on paying something come October 1 because, and this line shows that for 2025, you would have paid $3,400. For 2024, you'd have paid almost your full premium, 6,000, because there wasn't a lot of triggered payment early in the year. And remember, even after an interval ends, it takes 60 days for that to get finalized. So there's not but about 4 months worth of early intervals that can contribute to help make your payment lower. Now in 2018, some good payments was triggered early, and that means hey, you didn't get a bill. Now for 2026, right now, about a third of all my clients they're not going to have a bill this year. Their bill's going to be zero. And they're already going to be receiving checks. But the other half to two-thirds, they're going to be about like 2025 was for this, a little less than half or maybe half of their premium. But remember, this runs all the way till December, all the way to the end of the year. So just because you pay it October 1, just like this 2025 example, you paid 3,400, then you ended up when the dust settled for the whole year, you netted $11,000. So, any questions on that or any questions so far, Jacqueline?
Not at this time.
Okay. You don't even have any questions?
I'm still trying to absorb it all.
Just picking. Okay. This breaks it down for this actual quote here. The counties and the grids. Again, this was the haying, this was the grazing in Shackelford County under those grids, and this is the premium. Okay, so if ever I went back and talked to Grandpa and he doesn't want me to use his acreage or he won't give me a lease on his acreage, okay, well we'll just take this one right out. That was only $10 premium, no big deal. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Now, one thing that I didn't say earlier, this works on owned ground that you own and ground that you lease. Now, if you ever get audited, you do have to show some form of proof of a lease. Now, that can be a big 5-page lease agreement, or that can be actually just the landowner and your signature showing that you lease it from Joe Blow, almost on a back of a receipt or something. It can be very simple. It just needs the landowner's signature and your signature. But lease ground and own ground qualifies for this.
Hey, Kevin,
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
talking about the lease agreements on that. Will your FSA lease agreements with owners work for that as well?
Yes, that's correct. Yep, it sure will. Yep. Same lease agreements that qualify for them or satisfy them will satisfy this. Now, in this quote here, we've got just up above here was the total. Every grid that this person had, this is where we're at. Okay. then if I ever send you a quote, then it's going to break it down to actually, like this one was only 11 out of 20 years. This one, 11 out of 20, 18 out of 20, 18 out of 20, 17 out of 20, 15, 14. So that just shows you, it breaks each grid and each property down. Okay. And we're not going to go back through them because we just look as a whole there. But that is pretty much it on PRF. Um, if we can ever help you, get a hold to any of our Texas Farm Credit offices, or you can personally get Hannah, Adam at Athens, or myself. And if you want to take a picture of that, that's my cell phone and my email. And please, it doesn't cost anything to work up a quote, and that's what I'm here for, and that's my job. So I would love to work up a quote for somebody, and it works. And a lot of times at this point, especially after looking at that quote, we go, man, this is too good to be true. And I've had customers tell me that at first. It's too good to be true. Well, it is because you're only paying for half of the premium. The USDA through the ag bill is paying for the other half. So that's why it works so well and the success rate is so high on this program. So take advantage of it because it's your tax dollars at work through the ag bill. So make sure you take advantage of it. And that's a lot of numbers right there that can sure help supplement a farm's income. Any questions?
Kevin, I've got a question. Is there an acreage minimum for someone that's wanting to sign up for PRF?
No, there is no acreage minimum. Um, Now, it's all per acre, okay? And on basically just average type numbers, like I was saying earlier, hay's about $25 an acre, grazing's about $5 an acre. And um, typically nation average, you get about $1.85 back on return for every dollar you pay in. Okay, so I get $1 from you. We go to the USDA, get $1 on your behalf, send that $2 to an insurance company. On average, we get $1.85 back to the producer. The insurance company makes 15 cents. They're happy, and the producer's happy. So if you only have 10 acres, there's not going to be a lot of dollars there and it's not going to add up as much, but the ratio and the equation still works the same. So, and we have zero problems doing 5 acres or 5,000 acres. It's, no problem at all for us to do whatever size acreage, and the math all works out the same. It's just sometimes on the smaller acreage properties, people get a little frustrated or they go, man, I've only got $100 premium and, that's not worth my time. Well, really, it's just worth a little bit of time to start with. And then after you get it set up, then every year it's just a renewal. So it's not a lot of maintenance as far as that goes. Anything else?
One more for you. So can you use this alongside like drought relief payments and different payments that are sent out from FSA?
Yes. So yeah, and thank you, Hannah, for reminding me on that because um, I forgot to mention that this is completely separate from your NAP programs or any other programs that you're participating with through FSA or NRCS or something like that. So this is completely separate, very similar to their NAP drought insurance, but a little bit different. But this is completely independent. The only thing that goes through the FSA Farm Service agencies is the subsidy. That's the only thing we use them for. Is their subsidies to get your 50% paid from the ag bill paid for. So good question. Our next presentation is going to be. Let me get it swapped over. It's going to be livestock risk protection. Are you guys seeing the right slide there with the cattle by the pond?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, good deal. So livestock risk protection. Why cattle producers use it to manage price risk. So if anybody's got cattle that's on this call, we all know how expensive they are to buy right now, to feed, everything. And it's the game has changed in the cattle industry, and we really need to make sure we're protecting them. This is price protection out in the future. Okay, and so where you see this a lot is your guys that's buying 500-pound calves out of the sale barn every day. Those guys are planning on putting X amount of pounds on them and then sell them, and they're trying to make profit and earn a living by doing that. This
Hey,
program, yes, ma'am.
quick question. Is LRP
Mm-hmm.
for cattle only, or will it cover bison as well?
LRP is cattle only, cattle and swine. LRP is cattle and swine. Okay. And you've got a feeder cattle and you got fed cattle. Fed cattle is your 1,100 pounds and plus. Feeder cattle is anything less. Now, this is marketable cattle. So we're putting this on calves. Okay. This is not going on like your cow herd. This is going on your cow herd's offspring. So if you're running 100 mama cows and you want to protect 100 calves that you're going to sell November 1 that are 5 weights, that's what this is for. Or the example I was using with the guys that's buying the feeder calves at 500 pounds, going to run them up to 800 and then send them on to the feedlot. This is protection for that. Basically, you're buying protection in the future price world at today's market. And it sure makes your bankers happy. A lot of bankers, loan institutes are starting to require LRP insurance because they're afraid when this market breaks, it's going to get really ugly. And it's always, had a cycle. I don't think we're anywhere close to it breaking because of the shortage that we have. But when it does, you can be protected with LRP insurance. Again, it's a tool for livestock producers. You choose the coverage for a future marketing period. So if you know you're going to sell 500-pound calves November 1, that's what we're looking at, and that's where we're marketing and forecasting at. If the actual ending value is below your coverage price, an indemnity may be due. So basically, this is going off the CME board, okay, feeder index board, and if you protect $3 a pound today, and when you get to sell your calves November 1, if it's at 250, if the board is at 250, basically it's paying 50 cents a pound on your cattle that you have protected. So it's strictly off the board. You have to buy this through an approved crop insurance agent. Bottom line is LRP is designed to help protect against market price declines, not production loss. So if you didn't get the pounds on your calves that you needed this year, this is not going to help you. This is strictly price protection. This is not mortality, and it's not because you didn't get the pounds that you needed. It's not any kind of protection like that. This is strictly the national board price difference. That's what we're protecting. The CME feeder index. A lot of people don't realize this, but it's consisted of 12 states, and you can see the orange states right there up through the middle of the country. 7 days rolling market window of 7 to 899 pound eligible steers. That's where the feeder index comes from daily. And then that's posted every afternoon. And then the RMA through the USDA then tells us what we can protect and at what price. The eligible cattle that make up that cattle index is mostly medium and large, number 1 and number 2, 7 to 899 pound steers. and it excludes predominantly dairy, exotic, or Brahma. So it's more of your meat type, breeds, and it excludes your heavy Brahma breeds and exotics and any kind of dairy. Um, why the feeder index was sort of created? It gives lenders, producers, and risk managers a common market benchmark for feeder cattle price protection conversations. Uh, it allows a lender that's trying to lend on you buying 100 5 weight calves. It gives them something like a blue book to go back to and see where that market's at. How it works, you choose the price floor. You cover the expected cattle, so you figure out how many head and when you're going to sell it. Uh, we are not buying your calves. A lot of people get confused on that. We're not buying your calves, okay? You're still selling your calves just like normal through your sell barns or through your online accounts or your buyers. You're still selling and marketing your cattle. This is just strictly what date you say that you're going to sell, and what the board was the day you protected versus the day your target date. So you're going to go ahead and sell your cattle like normal. Now there is some parameters there. You can't sell any earlier than 60 days of your target date, and then you actually can hold them over a little bit if you need to try to get them sold to a better market, or if you end up wanting to keep a bunch of heifers for replacement heifers, you can do that as well. But again, if the market falls on your target date versus what you protected, you're getting paid that difference. Now, again, I talked earlier about winning and losing, and so many times we want to win. The PRF is a very winning program, and it's very easy to win on PRF. And a lot of times, even when we win on PRF, we still have a lot of grass. Just like last year, we had plenty of grass, baled plenty of hay. It got dry in the fall. We triggered payments, so it was the best of both worlds. This LRP, a lot of times we don't want to win on this because that means that the if you win on this, that means yes, it protected you, but now your cull cows for that year, your bulls that you need to sell that are getting some age on them, they're all going to be sold at a lower value. So, I have guys that smile when they go to write their check for LRP because they're so happy for a strong market. And as of lately, here in the last year and a half, 2 years, most of the time what they protected, it actually goes up and it basically paid for their insurance and then they made additional funds. But they can sleep a little bit better at night knowing that they've got that protection coverage. Their spouse can sleep better, their accountant, and sure enough, their banker can too. So if the market stays strong, you still benefit from selling cattle at the higher cash price. Uh, Benefits of LRP, it protects a price floor, and there's no margin call. So if any of you guys are familiar with puts or any kind of other future type selling of your livestock, a lot of times there's margin calls on that. And what that margin call is means if the market goes up too much, then you actually owe them money. So you have to pay some of that extra profit we were talking about back. So this is very simple. If it goes down, you're getting paid. If it goes up, you're just paying the premium that you agreed to pay. Um, it supports planning with your banker and with your farm budget because you have a floor set. So even if that market crashes or changes, you know what you're going to get by the time you sell your cattle and by the time you get your insurance check. You know about how much you're going to get per head. So that gives a little bit of relief for marketing, trying to market for the farm and explain to your banker how you're going to pay him back. Who should use LRP? Really anybody with a cow calf operation all your stalkers, backgrounders, they're the ones that really use it because they are actually writing a check for those guys. Some of your cow-calf people, they don't really know exactly what they got in them because they are raising them and they haven't wrote a check for them. They wrote a check for the mamas, but not the calves. So the stalkers and the backgrounders, they're really big on this program, like I said, because they know what cost they got in them, and they've got to protect that in case that market falls. Feedlots, finishers, guys like that. Um, but really, any producer who wants a simpler price protection than hedging um, um, and doing that. So it's a good fit. Um, why a producer should have it? Well, markets move fast. Um, Costs did not disappear. Your costs are going to stay the same, even if your market goes down. And then you're just protecting a floor there, and gives you flexibility with your budget. This is some difference between this LRP, outside insurance, and futures and options. You deal with the agent instead of a brokerage account exchange. The biggest thing is no daily margin calls if the market goes up too much. Um, that's the biggest difference between that. And you're still able to sell cattle in the cash market when it's high, and you're able to benefit from that. Just an example here, 50 head of 1,100 pounders. Um, if you protected $2 and at your end target date, it was at $1.90. That's $200 a hundredweight, or 190 a hundredweight. That's $10 a hundredweight, or 10 cents a pound. That would be $5,500 right there. So typically, local markets, whether it's a sale barn or contract buyers, are following the board. So you'd have probably got that $1.90 a pound, and then this insurance is going to come in and fill that gap. Now, I did not take out your premium, and your premium for most of these policies, and I'll show you here in a minute, but your premium most of the time is $75 to about $100 a head is what the premium will be. But that's according to what coverage level and how far you push it out. What LRP does not do, does not cover any kind of death loss, animal health problems, or production issues, like I talked about earlier with lighter calves that year. It does not cover that. And I get a lot of phone calls about mortality, death loss insurance. That's still going through a farm bureau or any kind of rural insurance agent. They do have some policies on that for for insuring a really high dollar bull or a horse or something like that. But this is not covering that. Does not replace marketing plan and regular review break even levels. So don't get too comfortable with this, because you still want to try to sell your calves in the futures market. You still want to try to get them sold early when that market's still high. Even with this target date, that's fine. Get them sold, but for example, we're using November 1 target date. That would be your ship date, basically. So you're still going to market, and you're still going to do your normals. You just got some protection on the backside in case that market falls. Paperwork, record keeping still matters. I can tell you on LRP, if you go to trigger a positive payment from LRP, the auditing department's just gonna ask for some receipts. And they're just gonna verify you're selling cattle, and you're selling the type of cattle and weights that you had insured. Okay, here's another example. This is 100 head of 7-weight steers. The coverage price is $2,456. The producer premium is $99.15. So basically, you're guaranteeing yourself $2,357 after the premium. And this was to be sold. This coverage was taken out February 26th, and the end date was October 22nd. And this is just a little historical data of 8 out of the last 16 years, this triggered a payment. Now, it was the average indemnity was $43.75 a head. So actually, this was, insurance coverage. But if you look over in the bottom right corner, a 5-year average, the premium was $70, and you triggered $44 a head back. So actually, you lost a little bit at this program. But the big one I wanted to show you here was in 2016. So after the drought of 11, we had a big price increase on our cattle in 12, 13, 14. And then in 15, it started breaking. And then in 16, it started breaking. In 16, it really broke. And look, $214 a head is what that 16. So where are we at? That's what I ask myself all the time. Where are we at? Are we at year 13, year 14 currently? Are we at 15? You know, my guess is we've still got a while of these high prices because of the shortage in America, like I said earlier. But this is where the coverage really comes in is when that market breaks that first time real heavy. The guys that had it in 2015 and 2016 really had their investment protected there. After that, it's just sort of ups and downs as far as protection goes. Just a quick snapshot here. This is if you combine, and I used this for a presentation a while back, combine PRF with LRP. Works really good hand in hand, and it just sort of offsets. Your PRF, really makes the LRP easier because the PRF most of the time is such a good positive return that it helps cover some of the LRP losses if there is any on the good years. Protect the downside, keep the opportunity. There's my name and information again. If I can ever work you up a quote or help you, let me know. I do want to show you real quick and it's not letting me do it. So let me just go to it real quick. I wanted to show you a quick current example with yesterday's market. So like I said, every day about 4 o'clock, we get prices that are good for that day's market. And I wanted to show you real quick. Had it pulled up, but it got closed for some reason. Okay, so this is an example on steers being sold October 8th at 700 pounds. Yesterday, we could have protected 350 a hundredweight. Now, I like to look at it per head. So that would have been $2,454 is what you could have protected yesterday with the market. And that would have cost you $65.61. But one of the other things I wanted to show you is right now, a lot of people tell me, hey, well, I don't think this market's going anywhere. I don't need protection. Okay. Well, I have a lot of old timers that are really smart. They come down here in this 90% range. At 90%, you're still protecting $2,200 on that calf, which they can live with because they say, hey, I'm making good money. I can live with that. And it only cost them $11.80. So it's not really yes or no. It's most of the time it's yes, but at what level? I mean, you could even go all the way down to 75% and still protect $1,840, which is still really good. And that's less than $1 a calf right there. Now the market would really have to break to move from 2,400 to 1,800, but markets change. But somewhere normally in this 90 to 92.5% has been real popular for me this year because it cheapens that premium up. And in case the market doesn't change, which we hope it don't, then that's not much money to protect. But the guys that want to protect 100%, for October delivery, you're looking at $65 premium there. So, okay, that is all that I have. Jacqueline, is there any questions on that?
I don't see any in the chat at this point, Kevin, but if anybody's got any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, because if you've got the question, I'm sure somebody else does too.
I know it's pretty boring material, but it is some important facts and a lot of investment there on these farms and ranches. But it is boring, and I apologize for being boring.
I don't know if it's so much over boring, Kevin, or is what it can be very easily overwhelming at times.
Yes, yes, yeah, and that's what I'm here for. Normally, it's hard to understand the first pass, but that's what I'm here for. If anybody ever wants to just talk about it or look at personal examples, that's what I'm here for. So I get it.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any questions. But if everybody could look in their chat, I did go ahead and post that survey link that I had talked about at the beginning of the program. If y'all would take a few minutes to fill that out, like I said, it greatly, greatly helps me from the AgriLife standpoint of making sure that we're bringing you information that is relevant to you and your operation. And of course, is with the Women in Ag program, that is something that I strive for on a year-to-year basis with this program. Also, I would like to go ahead and announce that the fourth annual Women in Ag conference has been scheduled for September 8th and 9th here again in Fort Worth. It'll be in the stockyards again this year. And we'd love to have everybody join us. And I can tell you that the schedule has been set, and that is going to be made public probably Monday afternoon to everyone. So we're excited about the agenda that is coming up with that, and we'd love to see everybody there with us again this year. Hannah, Kevin, is there anything else that we need to know about from the Texas Farm Credit standpoint?
I don't think so. I hope we didn't overwhelm all of you. That was a lot of information for a short period of time and a lot of numbers. But hopefully you're leaving with an idea that there are some tools out there to help you mitigate and manage the weather and cattle markets that we all know scare us just a little bit. And so if you ever need anything, if you're curious as to how the PRF or LRP can impact your operation personally, please reach out to Kevin or I or Jacqueline, and we'll get in touch to either run a quote or at least talk to you about the options that are available for your operation specifically. It doesn't cost anything to run a quote, simply just your time to sit down with us, get your property information, get your cattle information, and to kind of go over that quote with you. So hopefully you all have a great day. We really appreciate you joining us for this. I know Jacqueline appreciates it as well. And thank you, Jacqueline, for putting this together for us.
Anytime, anytime. So with that being said, this program is being recorded. Give me till next week. That way I can get some edits done to it. And it will be posted to the Tarrant County YouTube page. And I'll be sending that link out to everyone as soon as it's posted as well. Again, we look forward and hopefully see you in October. Kevin, Hannah, thank you so much. I know I'm going to have to sit here and go back through this information a couple of times just to make sure that it's absorbed. Kevin, you might be getting some phone calls from me at a later time with some of it as well. But again, thanks everyone. Have a great weekend. And again, thanks to our speakers. We'll see y'all at the next meeting.
Thank you.